Lisa, and I'm here today to show you how to make chocolate cupcakes that are light and moist. This was a recipe that I have used since I was a little girl growing up, and it's been one of the family favorites. So this is how we're going to get started with it today. We're going to use 3 cups of flour, and you need to sift all your dry ingredients for this. And we're going to use 2 cups of sugar, and 6 tablespoons of cocoa, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And that's all of our dry ingredients that we're going to be using this. And just make sure that you sift them all together. Now we're going to add the liquid ingredients. First, in our dry ingredients, we're going to make 3 holes with a spoon. Then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, 1/4 cup of oil. And each of these liquid ingredients, you're going to put them in each of the holes that you made in your dry ingredients. We're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. Now I use a concentrated vanilla, so I only use half of what the recipe calls for. So that's why I'm only using 1 teaspoon. If you're using regular vanilla, then you want to use 2 teaspoons. We're going to pour 2 cups of cold water over top of this. Now we're going to stick it into the mixer. I use a tabletop mixer, but you can use a hand mixer if that's what you have at home. And then we're going to start this out on low speed so we don't have flour and all the dry ingredients flying all over the kitchen. Then once it's mixed somewhere it's not going to be flying around, then we're going to increase the speed. And we're going to increase that speed up to high speed for about a minute or 2. As you're mixing, you want to stop every so often, and you want to scrape the dry ingredients from off the side of your bowl. Scraping off the sides, you're going to turn the mixer back on, and you're going to let it mix a little bit more to mix in those dry ingredients that you just scraped off the side of the. When it's done mixing, it's time to put it into the cupcake paper. We're ready to put the batter into the cupcake pans. And then I have prepared the cupcake pans with cupcake papers. And when I scoop my cupcakes into the papers, I always use the scooper. That way you come out with your cupcakes all being the same size. We're going to fill up the scooper and we're going to put it into each cupcake paper. And I'm using a large scooper. It also makes it faster to get your batter into your cupcake papers too. And it gets a little bit messy, but that's okay. If you have kids, they always enjoy helping out with this part. For these I have used a small scooper and a large scooper so that it makes the papers 3/4 full. Now we're going to put them in a preheated 350-degree oven for 20 minutes. Okay, now we're going to check it. It's been 20 minutes for the cupcakes in the oven. We're going to use a cake tester. We're going to test them and make sure that they're not wet on the end. Take these out. Don't these look just absolutely marvelous? And oh boy, do they smell good. I sure wish you could smell them. Okay, now we're going to set them on a cooling rack and we're going to let them cool for about 15 to 20 minutes before we put the frosting on. While we're waiting on the cupcakes to cool, we're going to go ahead and make our frosting. We're going to use 2 cups of 10x sugar and 1 egg white. And I use boxed egg whites. That way you're not wasting your money with having to throw out the yolks or trying to figure out another recipe to use the yolks for. It saves money that way by using the box kind, which you find in the refrigerated area of your grocery store. And 3 tablespoons of the boxed egg whites equals 1 large egg. Half a cup of shortening. 2 tablespoons of butter that is at room temperature. Tablespoons of flour. 2 tablespoons of milk is what the recipe calls for, but I use 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream instead because it gives you a much fluffier frosting. And we're using the concentrated vanilla is what I prefer to use. So I'm only going to use a half a teaspoon, but if you're using regular vanilla, you're going to use a whole teaspoon. We're just going to use a regular tablespoon that you would eat with, and we're going to put 4 to 5 big heaping tablespoons of peanut butter in this. If you want to make this frosting vanilla, you can just leave the peanut butter out, of course. If you like a little crunch to your icing, then you can use crunchy peanut butter, but I prefer using the creamy. If you want chocolate icing with this recipe, then you can add some cocoa powder to it, or now they have the new Hershey's chocolate in the jar that has the consistency of peanut butter. We have all of our ingredients in there. We're going to put it on the mixer, and we're going to start out on low again so we don't have the dry ingredients flying all over the kitchen. Turn the speed up on the mixer to high, and we're going to let this mix for a couple minutes so it gets nice and fluffy. We're going to do the same thing that we did with the cake mix batter, is that we're going to scrape the edges around the bowl so we make sure all the dry ingredients are incorporated into the icing. We're going to let it mix a little bit more. We have nice fluffy peanut butter icing. Boy, does it smell good. Now we're going to frost the cupcakes. I have a disposable decorating bag, and even though they're disposable, I wash them and reuse them until a hole pops into them. It saves money. And I'm using a 6B decorating tip off the end of your decorating bag, and you just drop your decorating tube down inside of that. Now we're going to make swirls with the icing on top of the cupcake. You're going to start at the outer edge, and you're just going to move the bag and swirl around outside of the cupcake and keep on coming in towards the center. And then quit squeezing. Top it off with some of the Hershey spread, which I have melted in the microwave for about 10-second intervals until it's thin enough to be able to come out of the bag. So this is just a regular sandwich bag. We're going to cut the tip, and we're going to just make swirls with the chocolate on top. I'm going to swirl peanut butter on it. We're going to turn the cupcake around and go the opposite direction with the peanut butter. I'm going to top it off with a mini greasy cup. And there you have it, a scrumptious cupcake, chocolate with peanut butter icing that will be the star of any meal or any party. Thank you for joining me in my kitchen, and good baking from my kitchen to yours.